Hello and welcome to Season 5 of the Soundstage Audiophile Podcast. For the past few years, we've been digging deep into the history of hi-fi, as well as how geopolitics and socioeconomic forces are shaping its present realities. This season, we'll also start to look at hi-fi and audiophilia with an eye toward the future. What's this hobby going to look like as demographics shift? What can we do to bring in new enthusiasts? How will the gear and the hobby itself evolve in the coming decades? To discuss the possibilities, here's host Jordan Guth and this week's guest.
Hello and welcome to the Soundstage Audiophile Podcast. Today we are joined with Peter Keller-Larsen, Chief Commercial Officer, CCO of SL Audio, or Steinway Lyngdorf. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you very much. It's an honor.
We were just talking a little bit before we pressed record here. You started at Steinway Lyngdorf in November of last year, November of 2025?
That's correct. Yeah, it's pretty recent.
So before we kind of get into what our overarching topic for this season is, and we start picking your brain about kind of your experience in the hi-fi market and all that, let's kind of talk a little bit about your origin story. Like, how did you end up, like, what paths did you take that have you end up where we are today?
Yeah, it's a story of passion and love of music that goes all the way back to my early teenage years when I was sitting in my room annoying my dad with loud music, listening to Dolly speakers and NAD 3020A and just rocking and recording music from the radio, and I just couldn't stop. And I connected with music in a way I still can't explain. So it's been a passion since I was very small. And the funny thing is I never got to work in the audio industry until now. And I still ask myself, why is that when I have such a love and passion for it and innovation and commercial development as well? But it was not to be until now, and maybe that's just the way it should be.
What did you do in school? Like what was your schooling, your education? What did you find yourself in, basically?
Right. Yeah, I was really divided when I finished high school whether I should become an electrical engineer or go commercial. So I ended up commercial, so business college in Denmark, and then on to university in the US. So MBA. So all of that commercial thing, but I still couldn't sort of let go of my passion for technology and science. In high school, my favorite topic was science. That's where I scored the highest. But so I'm kind of I'm leaning towards both. I'm very fascinated by that, and that I guess also led me to innovation, to technology, and having an interest in what it does for people, but also how you make it a commercial success. So those things have to go hand in hand. You cannot have a commercial success unless you understand people, the consumer, the customer, the user, and their everyday lives, their feelings, their pains, their gains, their dreams, and the frictions that you come across. And that takes some humility, some being observant and looking into that before you even talk about technology. Technology for technology's sake is not interesting. And many, many companies have failed because of that, because they didn't take the time to look into, so who's this for? What's important to them? I think that kind of thing is super important these days, also in the audio industry. As we transition, and I love the theme that you have here, because I've seen it elsewhere. I come from the internet industry and the mobile industry. I've been with Nokia when it was at its peak, and I've seen the iPhone come along from Apple and everything ending in 7 years. It's really fascinating, but it's also a story of you didn't listen to the customer. You didn't understand what technology was for. And so there's so much learning from outside that I think I can apply here as well. I've been a management consultant in my past as well, preaching lean startup philosophy. I don't know if you know the book Lean Startup from Eric Ries.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic book, and it's so relevant right now because he wrote that book because of a pain. He developed an amazing instant messenger service with 3D avatars and asked people, the users, why don't you have this 3D avatar to represent you instead of your own image? And he thought this was the best idea since sliced bread. And he raised so much money and he put a big team behind it, and he just kept failing. And he kept failing until he hadn't any more money left. And he said, well, maybe I should talk to the customer, to the user. So he went out and observed young guys and girls chatting on instant messengers. And yes, so why wouldn't you want this to represent you? And they looked at him and said, are you nuts? And then it dawned on him, there's just something he hadn't understood. When they could say, are you nuts? Because they couldn't have their whole persona, their identity represented by a 3D avatar in real life. That was just unthinkable. So he totally went 180 degrees on that. And then they tried something new, the gaming universe. Because that's where people would actually like to be anonymous and be something else and be someone else. And suddenly the whole thing swept around and became a huge success. But he had to go through the pain of being humble, listening to the consumers, and be curious and learn from it, and then make course corrections. And I think we have to do the same in this industry now.
And I think what's like fascinating to me is you come from the tech sector, you have a passion for hi-fi, and you must have over the years been kind of looking at, like, you mentioned listening to DALI speakers in your youth and all that stuff. So I'm assuming, and correct me here if I'm wrong, but you were probably listening and looking at that industry, the hi-fi industry, throughout the years.
Oh, yeah.
Was there elements of the hi-fi industry that throughout the years you're like, why are they doing this? Or why aren't they doing that? Or these guys have got it good and these guys are out to lunch or whatever it may be?
Yeah. You know, I'm a big fan of Peter Lyngdorf and everything he created. To me, he's like a Danish Steve Jobs that just ready to start all over. If that's what it takes, that's what we're doing, and just throw it all on Brett and see what happens. And he had the courage to do that. He also had big visions, and I like that. And it was way more than just a brand or just a product. He was on a mission, and he still is. It's hugely and highly inspiring to be with him and talk to him still. He's still developing speakers. He can't stop it. It's fantastic. But that drive, I think, was interesting. That started the Hi-Fi Club, the dealership that's now in 6 countries in Northern Europe. It started DALI. It started the acquisition of Snell and NAD and Steinway and Lyngdorf and so many companies along the way. Purify, just to mention some of them. So I think that passion that started that, there was, and insisting on more value for the consumers. We should be able to do it in another way. And for some years that went extremely well. At some point I noticed that what started it wasn't suddenly what you were experiencing out in the dealerships. There's a MP3 came along, quality was not that important anymore. I guess mobility was the key word then. And that just was so sad to see how the whole hi-fi industry kind of, in my eyes, crumbled, and I even lost my interest myself. And it wasn't until the COVID days that something had to happen. I needed to invest in something. I needed to do something. I found my Rega Planner 3 turntable in the basement and got myself some Bowers & Wilkins speakers, and suddenly I was coming alive again. Find my old DALI preamp and started investing and enjoying. And it's like, just music passion started again. And then I noticed in my career that, I'd been through a lot of things and a lot of places, and I still love to make things a success. But I also noticed it had to be what I really was passionate about. Something was missing. And last summer, I was sitting in the Swiss mountains, looking at the green hills and listening to the cowbells, a cold brew in my hand, and I kept asking, and people kept asking me, so what is it that you want? What if you're not happy where you are, then what? And just kept coming to me, it's got to be audio. It's got to be audio. And one thing led to the other, and here we are.
That is awesome.
I think we can renew this industry, and that's also why I like your theme so much, because it's needed. And it goes back to Eric Ries and the humbleness of observe the customers. Just like Dennis said in your opening podcast, we started with 2-channel stereo. It was the only thing in the living room. There's no big TV screen in high resolution. There's no gaming console. And he was so right. I listened to that podcast flying out to Asia to meet with Peter Lyngdorf and our distributor out there in Malaysia and in Thailand. And I was like, Dennis is onto something here. And it correlates so well with some insights we have from the biggest dealer chain in Northern Europe, that customers are different now. The time they spent on 2-channel stereo listening is very limited versus the total spent on TV series, movies, gaming, and music. They want it to sound great. They like quality. They like great brands. They want a good demo. It has to be nice design, and it has got to have ease of use.
Yeah.
It's still on, and those younger generations also want that, but they have a totally different reference, a totally different starting point from which their tears in their eyes and their goosebumps is coming from something else than what started us with my cassette deck.
I think what's fascinating to me, and you kind of mentioned this, the idea of like bringing out a turntable and kind of getting back into the vinyl as COVID restricted people from going outside, and you were probably in your house being like, what do I do? And I think that's an interesting point to me, because it is an entry point for a lot of folks. And why is this like ancient, let's say, technology the way that people get into modern hi-fi? And I feel we've talked about this, and we have a video series about this, the why vinyl. And there's so many layers to it, but it basically comes down to this idea in my mind that people want a tangible thing that gives them a feeling. And vinyl is a great way to do this because it's a tangible element. You can have beautiful artwork, you can read the lyrics, you can look at the playlist, and then you put it on and it gives you that feeling. The vibration of sound and all that. And I think even if people get a hi-fi system for, let's say, listening to vinyl, why wouldn't they use it to listen to their television, play their games, and do these other things? So I'm 100% on board with all that. And I guess I'm curious, like when you look at the demographic of people that Steinway Lyngdorf, or Lyngdorf, I should say, is servicing, do you find that it's those baby boomer generation, or do you find that it is a younger audience that's getting into these products? Or is that something that you have to change? Is that like part of what you're looking to do and looking to instill in the companies?
Right. Well, yes to all of the above. It is both, but obviously more baby boomers than the opposite right now. But what was really cool when I arrived in Malaysia after listening to you and Dennis talk about this, Dennis claiming that he became a better gamer because of great sound. And I really couldn't forget that. And then I see my Malaysian team actually posting one of their new very happy customers on Instagram having bought a Lyngdorf audio system just because he loved gaming and listening to it in a great quality in his living room with his friends. Cool. That was his primary use case. And I've never seen that before. And I just, hey, we have something to learn. Got me curious and happy. But you know what? I started with just stereo is enough for me. Forget surround sound and home cinema, and never was a big gamer myself. But joining the company, and even though I've been this hardcore stereo listener, I'm just like, wow, this is interesting. And why don't we just start there? How many audio shows of all the big ones, whether it's Munich, Vienna, Exponer, Bristol, how many gaming experiences do you see demoed there?
I've never seen a single one.
No. And why not? And I mean, this is definitely something we're going to try out, I can tell, because why not start where they are? They spend something between 30 minutes and 8 hours a day gaming. That's not the same for their music listening. But that doesn't mean you're not interested in music. So we do have a job to do with the younger generations. And we should do this playfully and with curiosity and just observe and be, humble.
I think it's really interesting as well. Like when I think of like gaming specifically, because this is kind of a hot topic, and ever since Dennis and I had that conversation, I've been looking at all the different marketing from different hi-fi brands, and there are a couple that they don't outwardly talk about gaming, let's say, but in their ads, you'll see like a gaming console and something on a screen, and then their speakers highlighted there.
Right.
Or you like some of the companies are getting more and more into soundbars. So you'll see like the soundbar and then the gaming element there. And they talk about the audio performance and they talk about music, but then you see the gaming in there, so you kind of have that relationship. When I think of like gaming specifically, the companies that come to mind are not high-end audio companies. Like I'm thinking of like Logitech speakers for gaming setups.
Yeah.
Which I've had one of those setups and it's not good by any means. So, and I also actually think about headphones quite a bit. And then I think about like I have a pair of Apple AirPod Max. So they have spatial audio, the 3D audio, and you kind of go into that. I really enjoy those headphones, and when you're playing games, you do get like the footsteps back and forth. It's really cool. But at the same time, when I do want to listen to music and I want to like just relax and enjoy it, or when I'm going on a plane, I throw on another pair of my headphones that are considered more hi-fi than the AirPods, because I find they don't sound quite as good and don't give me the same feeling with the music.
Yeah, there's that because Denmark is not only big on audio companies, also on hearing aid companies. And the GN, for instance, they acquired SteelSeries, so gamer headsets were for an insane amount of money, by the way. But that generation, including my own son, is ready to spend a lot of money on gamer PCs, keyboards, all the accessories you could imagine, including the headsets. But I notice when his friends are over, they don't wear headsets. They sit openly and play FIFA or whatever game, and that's part of the enjoyment. That's part of the entertainment. That has to be in good quality too. And I asked our CEO, Thomas Birkeland, when I was up there visiting, how do you see this generational shift? Because I've had an interest in this for a while. And he said, well, they may have nice headphones on right now, but at some point they get homes, maybe kids. They still want great music, but they can't have their headsets on any longer.
Yeah.
So then what? And at that point, they will probably be able to afford some good stuff in their living rooms, in their homes overall. And I think he's right. But you need to chase that with curiosity. And again, test things, try things out, and be there and ask, observe all the things that all the lean startup philosophy taught me and taught many people, that if you don't understand the customer, you can't solve the problem. And I think there is a problem. There is friction. There is differences in what you consider good sound, and there's a job to do for the industry in education. And I think you mentioned that word quite a bit also in these series, that we have to educate the next generation. And it's not just about selling stuff, selling products. It's actually about passing on the legacy and the importance of this. And great sound actually does something to our brains. It develops our brains. It develops more neurons to fire and enjoy, and dopamine to be produced. That won't happen with a cheap Bluetooth speaker to the same extent. And we've had this experience so many times, even with young audiences coming into cinema rooms or stereo rooms or whatever the setup is, when no matter who you are, when you experience that great quality, something happens and you never forget it.
It kind of has me thinking about this idea, and I hear this topic come up quite a bit, and there's some companies that are very pro active speakers, and there's some companies that are very separates and passive and all that. And there's some companies in between that kind of do a mix. And I think about that because when we're talking about the younger audience and getting people into hi-fi for the first time, when you look at a system, it can be quite intimidating when you say, all right, so I'm going to drop this amount of money, whatever it is, on a set of speakers. But then I need these components. And then if I want to listen to my record player, then I need this phono component. What are all these things and how do they all connect together?
Yeah.
So I think the education bit is partly kind of involved there in kind of explaining why these components are necessary. But then there also might be kind of an element of, do you make it easy for people to jump in and educate them later. So, I wonder if active systems, fully active systems in a box are a gateway to kind of more separate stuff down the road, or if this generation kind of doesn't see the separates as kind of an upgrade, and rather they just see them as an unnecessary complexity of the past.
Wherever they are, I think start where the customer is. And if active is the answer to making that easy and frictionless, start there. Do it. And we see many brands doing that out there with much lower price points than we have, for instance, and that's perfectly fine. Start the journey somewhere. I didn't start with, Mark Levinson and what have you when I was a teenager. There's no way. But I actually very early had an experience with Mark Levinson and some Italian horn speaker Sensati when I had my Dolly speakers repaired. And he said, while you're waiting, just listen to this. And I never forgot that. Never, ever. It was just amazing. It could be that good. So wherever they are, you start there. If that's active speaker, so be it. That's fine. And then you evolve. If you're in the love of the music, also for the customer, it's not going to be the point where there's active or not active. That can evolve later. Then you realize, all right, could be even better. I want that. Is it active or is it not active? I don't think that's the point. That's, again, a technology choice, a conceptual choice. It's not the point of the whole exercise of listening to music or gaming or watching movies. But the ease of use thing that you're into here is super important. I think we are the generations after us are less sort of patient with don't make me think, and I'm not going to read a guide or anything. That's true. The impatient is definitely different these days. So things have to be super, super fast and easy and not demand a lot from the consumer.
There's definitely an element, and I talked to Conradine about this previously this season. I also talked actually a number of people about this idea that and I want to say it's kind of like the iPhone or the Apple effect to a degree, where you start getting into technology that is so seamless that you expect all technology to be that way. So now that we have smart thermostats, now that we have smart cameras, now that we have smart everything, there's this expectation that the user interface on that the setup process, that it's plug and play is one of the kind of words that gets thrown around all the time. And that those experiences are seamless. And people are much less willing to accept a product that has any amount of learning curve.
Oh, yeah.
They're much more willing to say, you know what, I'm going to pay more money, or I'm just going to spend my money differently to avoid that altogether.
Yeah. But I think that's definitely a thing to be solved and be thought of when you design and code or develop products. It has to be that easy. It has to be so intuitive that there's never a doubt. There are very few that think it's fun to play your way into how to actually use a device or a product. I think those days are gone. It's very rare. So ease of use is definitely, it's not only something that I believe, we see it from many sort of research studies, also from the dealer chain I mentioned before, that ease of use is a key thing, because it's going to be the everyday interaction with what you love, whether that's a movie or music or gaming. It has to be a joy to use. And I think that's really, really important to us as well. And one of the things that meant that Nokia was beat off the track by Apple, it was definitely not a joy to use what Nokia called smartphones at the time.
Yep.
And it's actually what got Steve Jobs started. He said, they call them smartphones, but they're not really that smart, are they? Couldn't we do better? And his people in software said, well, maybe, we're not sure. And they actually spent 7 years developing the first iPhone. But once it was there, it was like home run, boom. And I bought an iPhone back then. I was working at Nokia. But
Did you?
I had to know what this was, and I didn't want to let it go again. And all my friends and family said, "Why are you walking around with an iPhone when you work for Nokia?" Well, I have to know that you're my competition. And I asked my software developers, "Why is this working so much better than our phone?" It's because it's a totally different technology, and they designed the software from the ground up to deliver just that and nothing else. They had the user experience at heart, not technology, not calling it 3G or how many megapixels the camera had. The experience of using it every single day should be a joy. And with iPhone, there were 2 or 3 navigation layers. In a Nokia smartphone at that time, it was 12.
That's wild.
A 2-year-old could use an iPhone. That
Yeah.
was not the same for a Nokia smartphone. And
And
he got
Nokia
it.
wasn't the only one. There was
Oh, no.
Yeah, Canadian here.
Oh, yeah.
From I was in Ottawa at the time, but I lived in Toronto. Like BlackBerry RIM was all the rage. All my friends had Blackberries. I didn't really like Blackberries personally, but that was the other one that people were like, "Oh, BlackBerry is going to kill iPhone. Like it's a joke." And there was an arrogance about that company and about their position on that didn't pan out long term.
Right. Yeah, it was both scary how good that was and how fast that went, but also interesting to see that paradigm shift came so quickly from mobile phones to mobile computers that required great computer software that the old players were not capable of doing. The only one that got it was Samsung, who said, "Well, we can't do this. We need to team up with it. Let's find a partner." So they were the first to go all in with Google. Google was also in basically risk of extinction. If there are no Google searches in the new mobile internet, where would Google be?
Yeah.
Hurry up, develop Android, give it away for free.
Interesting.
Otherwise, we're gone.
So, when you think about that, like what parallels or what elements do you see in the audio industry now in hi-fi, whether it be like traditional speakers or whether it be headphones? Like, what do you see as like where we're getting it right? Like, where are people getting it right?
Well, when it comes to headphones, I think a lot of huge brands, not us yet, saw that, well, there's certainly a trend and a market for headphones. I think the CEO of T plus A said it too, that yes, they were starting that, and definitely there was something there. That's a choice, and I respect that. And many of the other big brands have done some of the same. But I think there's more to be had. But you need to study the market and where things are going, and where people are willing to spend. And that's not only headphones, but that being observant and keep going at what's next, what's interesting. But that requires a dialogue with the market, with the customer, all the time. And there are many companies that are afraid of that continued dialogue, because what if we get criticism? Let's stick to our own image of ourselves, what's true and what the market wants. It's got to be what we are doing, because that's got to be right. That kind of thing happens with all industries and all types of companies, because it's hard to have a system in place where you continuously listen to customers, where you map it, you structure it, and you notice the trends. And then you also need to find a business model in it, and be competitive versus everybody else. So it's not trivial. It's difficult. It's hard, but we have to do it because the world is changing. And I think a lot of players in this industry have been clinging on to the sort of let's stick to what we do best and just do that even better, and maybe not been observing enough that it was not huge, monumental floor standards and monoblocks always that people wanted. There's room for more. There's interest in more. And maybe because we had this dip of MP3s and very poor quality, it all has to be picked up again of what is possible. What is it that people are missing? And how do you actually serve that so people get engaged and curious? All right, tell me more. I need to listen to that. I need to see that. And I think that's our challenge. And also my mantra is get prospects in front of demo experiences, because you cannot write yourself out of this. You can't even talk your way out of it. People need to experience it. When they do, no matter whether they're young or old, you'll get that reaction.
And I know we're kind of coming up on time here. There's just one element, and I think the SL and all the companies that Peter Lyngdorf is involved in have a great advantage in that, one, you can service different markets and still have kind of the separate markets, but their own brand identities. But then there is a level, like with Hi-Fi Clubbin', you do have some of that face-to-face customer interaction, or more so than some other companies out there that don't actually have as much reach into the everyday consumers. Coming from the Steinway Lyngdorf side of things, is that something that you're taking advantage of? Like, do you talk to these customers that go through those doors in a greater degree than some of these other companies that might not have access to kind of
as
foot
much
traffic?
as we can? And we mystery shop, but we also have people assisting Hi-Fi Club staff and getting it right and setting things up right and giving those demo experiences. And it has to come from the floor, but it also has to come from the top. They will say, Peter, it's your job as a brand to convince us that you're one of the leading brands and send traffic in through our doors. Because they're retailers. They're very busy with many brands, and you need to cut through the clutter there and get people to be interested in you enough to go down and say, I like to see and hear that. And I take that up, all right, it's my job, and I need to be a professional brand in a modern world to all the target audiences out there. And they have to give that great experience, that great advice on the floor, and hopefully be part of that education that we talk about, that this is actually what's possible. And I know from out there that they often present a potential customer that come in with a certain budget. They may go way over just to let them know what's possible. And then you can go down. So there are many sales techniques, of course, but it's planting that seed that I also was sort of exposed to in my youth. Then you start your journey. You may not afford that right there off the bat, but later on, you strive towards that. And we saw that also at ISE when we demoed our cinema down there. Not only focusing on sound pressure and a lot of bass and action movies, but actually our head of product marketing, Roland, told, we don't know how exactly people would have wanted this Tron soundtrack to sound in the bass. We can all hear it sounds great. But real music, acoustical instruments, we have a good idea how they're supposed to sound. And that's what we also demoed. And people came away with wow, it can do both. And honestly, I was so convinced before joining that it was only stereo that mattered. And now I'm willing to have, full Atmos at home because I can have it all.
Yeah.
So I'm even moving. And if I can move, we can also move all the younger audiences out there. But it has to come down to those demo experiences. I'm certain of it. And that you engage in good salesmanship, meaning, so what are you after? What do you listen to at home? What do you have? What excites you? So get into the humility and the compassion, the empathy for people, and that shared music, movie, gaming experience.
I love it. You've been very gracious with your time, and there is a question, and I ask it to everyone that comes on the show, even repeat visitors, which I hope you come back in the future. Yeah. To start it, though, for the first time, is there a soundtrack, an album, or a song, whatever it may be, that you could either listen to all of the time or you always come back to? Is there like a soundtrack to your life or just a favorite track or a favorite album that kind of you'd like to share with people, and it kind of gives you your little kick of hi-fi experience?
Yeah. And I guess most people that come on here, they would have listened to some of your podcast before and know that this was where it's going to end. When I had a morning walk in the sunshine there Saturday, I was thinking, what's Jordan going to ask me here? It's going to be that. What are you going to answer? And it just came straight to me. It's got to be David Sanborn and his live studio recording, Straight to the Heart.
Oh, that's great.
That song is what I heard in my teenage room, recording it on my NAD cassette deck, and I was just blown away, and I've heard it so many times. And that passion, and it still gives me goosebumps just talking about it. But that recording is just insanely good. When Sanborn was at his peak, you had Marcus Miller on bass, also at his peak, Steve Gadd on drums. It is so insanely good. So I love funk, I love jazz, I love a lot of music, but this is just an album that stands out and just takes me all the way back to where it started.
I love it. Peter, thank you so much for jumping on, and hopefully we'll see each other in Denmark over the next few months. I know there's going to be a trip planned, and then hopefully we can have you back on in a little bit and kind of get a catch-up of everything new. So thank you so much.
Thanks. Thank you.
All the best.